Hello, my name is Samantha Gibson. I'm an AmeriCorps Vista worker at Health Commons. Could you please introduce yourself for the recording?
Hi, my name is Melinda Dively-White, and I'm a DMP student in Augsburg.
Thank you. I wanted to reaffirm that you consent to the storage and use of this recording at Augsburg University, where it will be available to the public.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. To get us started, could you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and who you called family?
Sure. I grew up in a small railroad town in Pennsylvania, and in my family, I have a twin sister, and my parents had us when they were 18. So my immediate family was my mom, my dad, and my sister. And then we lived very closely, actually literally next door to my grandparents, my mom's parents. So when we refer to family, that's who I would think of when I was younger. But we had a large extended family that lived in the Pennsylvania area.
Great, thank you. How did you end up at Augsburg University then?
Oh, it's kind of a long trip, but we moved out of Pennsylvania when I was about 9 or 10 to get jobs because the factories in the town were laying people off and jobs were scarce. So we moved actually down to North Carolina. We moved up and down the East Coast, and my sister and I went to school for nursing. We got our undergrad in a school in Tennessee, and then we worked for several years here in Minnesota, and both pursued a master's degree. And when we were talking recently, there were a lot of changes going on in the world that we weren't necessarily happy about. I started looking at different programs that would help me understand a little bit more and be able to speak about things that are bothering me. And I felt like there are a lot of people in the world that don't get a really strong voice. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about transcultural type education and learning and helping to see things from different perspectives. And so Augsburg was a school that had that as a program. And so then I started to pursue the DNP in transcultural leadership. So it was kind of a long journey, but I actually didn't see myself going back to school for my doctorate. The only thing that actually led me to do that was because of the program that Augsburg had in transcultural leadership.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part?
Oh, sorry, did I fade off?
Yes.
The only reason I actually went back to school for my doctorate, because I felt like after my master's I was done, was the fact that there were a lot of things that were going on that I didn't think were right, and it was this specific program at Augsburg, that transcultural leadership, that really drew me in. So that's where I got to Augsburg.
Okay, it's really great to understand your motivation for that. How did that motivation and this program lead you to become involved with Health Commons?
The Health Commons was one of the areas that we could visit for practicum hours, but it was also something that I was very interested in. They start asking you, like even in the interview, about what you would want to do possibly for your DMP project. And I had, several different ideas, and one of them was to do something within the actual public health or in the community itself. Because my master's I did within the area that I worked, and so I was drawn to, if I'm going to do something in the program that's transcultural, the best place in my mind to possibly do that would be within the community itself. And the Commons seemed like a great area to go, where it's something within the community, and was something that I knew was possibly a need in Rochester. So I talked with Katie, and she said, well, come visit the Commons. So I went to the Commons. I've been there twice now.
Cool. And what can you tell me about those two visits, your experience at Health Commons?
I would actually like to go back once they go back into the church, because both of my experiences were in the trailer. Mm-hmm. So we were limited on what we could also do. Foot care is something that I would still like to be a part of, but both visits, I really enjoyed that connection, being able to connect with people in a way that is just genuine, this is real life. It's not, when people come into the hospital, they're outside of their own environment. So they're coming into a new environment. So the people that you see there, it's a different side of them, a different rawness, a feeling of out of control outside of their own environment. And so when you see them and see people in the commons, there's also a rawness to it. It's just a different kind of rawness. And there's still things outside of their control. But the commons is such a unique area in that it does create this, when people come in, it's not, this is our turf, we're not going in as experts. We're welcoming them into a space that is a shared space. It's their space just as much as it's our space. And I think that is a very deliberate thing that they try to do in the commons that I felt. So I that was one of the first things I noticed, was there were no barriers. People come in and they come up and you can talk right to them. You're not standing up, or if you are, you're at the same level as them. There isn't this, I'm looking down on you, your physical movements, just the way things are very deliberate for a welcoming environment. And I think that was a very nice and refreshing thing for me to see.
Absolutely. I think you're speaking to what Health Commons aims to do. Did your experience at Health Commons fit or challenge your expectations of what it would be?
I think it did a little bit of both, actually. I know that sounds a little strange. But going in, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. So I had some ideas in my mind. And so it met the openness that I was expecting. I think what challenged me was even though we grew up very poor, but we always had quite a bit of support from friends and family around us. And then I didn't have a lot of experience with homelessness. We did, in our undergraduate work, we did do a semester where we went into a soup kitchen and we talked with people that were experiencing homelessness, and that included families. So that was the most exposure that I had with people experiencing homelessness. So then it was pretty limited to, like people that you see on the streets when they're kind of going around, or it's just not the same level of engagement. And so going back in there, it was challenging to me again to think, wow, I'm in a big city here, but I know this happens in Rochester, and I'm not aware of it, or I'm not acknowledging it or engaging the way that I feel like I should. So in a way, it was challenging to me, and that I felt convicted in a sense, if that makes sense. Of, we get caught up in our own things and get busy, and we just don't. There's just not that level of awareness that I felt like I should have. So that was my level of challenge.
Okay. How well do you think your experience at Health Commons relates to what you were learning in your program?
Oh, I think it was, for me personally, I felt like it fit really well into what we're learning in our program. Especially the second visit I had was with 802, and for me, 802, I've enjoyed both of my main classes so far, but 802 really, it's that, going in and learning things from the academic sense, but then actually seeing it and experiencing it, that full, the whole sensory combination just really, it kind of integrates with your soul. You know what I mean? It just kind of just gets to become a part of you. And so for me, I really feel like it was a good connection. I really like the immersions. I feel like it's a very important part of Augsburg, and I really hope that they continue to do the immersions, and that it actually could possibly be expanded. So that's just my personal opinion though.
Do you have any suggestions for how we can better accompany people on their journey of health? Either logistically, so things like adding more hours or outreach services, or even by attitude?
I think attitude is a big one. That's a big question to answer. I guess, and when you say we, are you thinking like as people, as Augsburg, as students, as who's the we, or can we just pick which way we want to be we?
Health Commons or nurses, really you can pick the we.
Okay. I think as a humanity itself, overall, the big picture, I would say it's a heart issue, that we need to really change our hearts and our attitudes, and acknowledge, first of all, that we're humans, that we're all humans, no matter what and where you're at, what position you hold, as a human being with a life. So, but then to get more granular, I think as nurses, in the healthcare setting, I think it's that, we work so hard to learn things that we can help other people that sometimes we forget that people bring so much to the table, and we might say, this is what's going on with you, and yes, that might be an issue, but if we just narrow them down just to that diagnosis, we're missing so many other things that's impacting that diagnosis. So someone could come in with an issue, but they've got 5 other things that are more important to them personally. And if we don't understand and engage them in the conversation and let them be a part of that conversation and lead that conversation, and us to truly listen, I think we're going to miss a lot. And I think that's where, when we talk about services, it's really hard to talk about services in the sense that we want to regulate everything, we want to control everything because, it costs something or this and that. But when we're talking about services, if we don't have that first right attitude and heart, and then include the people, the services aren't going to mean anything. And we're not going to have those responses that the most, or the best outcomes, if you want to say, from the technical sense, but best response and engagement for the people. I don't know if that made sense, but that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really insightful. Can you elaborate a little bit on what strengths you learned or heard from the people that you met?
Resiliency is huge. One of the people that I met and I was able to talk to for an extended period of time, I kept thinking to myself, wow, this could have been me. This is like, you feel like, wow, I'm so lucky because this could have been me. I still stammer when I talk about it because it was one of those aha moments for me where I think if I didn't have the support that I have, the support system that I have, that the situation that this person was in would have been a real possibility for me. And the fact that this person wanted to have their life turned around and was doing all the things that they were supposed to do within the system that was before them, but yet every time they got to a certain point, they kind of got kicked back down by something that was in the system that wasn't inside their control. So you get to this point where you have to make a decision: do I want to live, or do I want to follow the system? And for some people, and that's just not fair. I mean, what would you want to do? Do you want to live, or do you want to remain in this constrained reality? And so this person's resiliency was just amazing, and the attitude that they had, because they decided, what, if I cannot succeed within the system that's before me, and for this person it was a job, and this was a person that had skills and was educated and was willing to take a position that was lower than what they were possibly able to do, but because of medical reasons was not able to remain in that position because of the cost of insurance. So it was either get the assistance that they needed to get the healthcare coverage that they needed to survive, or elevate themselves but possibly die because they couldn't get pay for the cost of care that they needed. And so they chose to volunteer regularly. And I thought, wow, here's a person that is contributing to society, that is doing that in spite of all these other things and a system that has worked against them repeatedly. And they still had a really positive attitude about it. And I just thought to myself, how would I react with this? How would I respond with this? So that really stood out for me.
Thank you. That's really powerful. You definitely touched on this, but if you could distill your knowledge, what, if anything, will you be taking forward with you from this experience?
And I think for me, what I hope to take forward, and that I hope to continue to do for the rest of my life, is listen, and truly listen. Because you get so used to thinking, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, but without listening, what will it do anything? It's just like shooting things in the dark. You're not going to hit the target if you don't know what it is, and you're going to learn the target by listening to the people around you. So it's not just about me. It's about all of us together. What I do impacts the person next to me, and we all are connected.
Has this experience impacted your future career ideals or your personal goals?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think so. I have to, there's this practical part of me that says, I've been working at a certain place for almost 20 years. So there's that practical side of me that's like, I'd like to stay within that part of the institution so that I can get retirement, and so that I'm not, struggling when I get older. But there's the other part of me that is saying, well, is there something within that I can use those skills and apply those things to help? But I'd also like to volunteer. Part of my DNP project is to hopefully open with a group of other students, health commons within Rochester. So I very much hope to see that come to become a reality, and I would like to be a part of that going forward. And then I'm also interested in possibly teaching if possible. Hopefully I would have something to contribute. So yes, it has. I just don't know for sure in what ways. I know I have ideas, but again, my ideas doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to be.
Definitely some drive there. I want to know what your hopes for the Health Commons in Rochester, if that can come to fruition. What would that look like, or what do you hope it fills?
I think it would. There's for me, as I've started looking around at things and exploring town, there's the Rochester I thought I knew, and then there's the Rochester that's behind it that I wasn't aware of. So I'd like to see that gap get close, be shorter or smaller, that more of awareness that's out there for more people. Because I think, like I said earlier, we get so caught up in our lives that we forget what's around us. So I think that's one thing I would like to see, is that awareness be extended. I guess I would also like to see, I can't say what I want the Health Commons to necessarily do or be just yet. I know that I want it to be a place that is welcoming. So for me, that I would like to mimic that open, welcome attitude that I felt when I went to the Commons in the cities. But aside from that, I think I think we're going to go in with an idea of, let's welcome people and do this, and this to help engage in the conversation. But in reality, I think what's going to happen is, when we start to see people and meet with people and talk, that what they need might be very different than what is needed. And that's what we really need to listen to and focus on, and engage the people there and have them be a part of that process, and maybe lead that process, and letting us know, what is it that the community needs? What is it that people that are struggling or experiencing challenges in their life, what is the most meaning to them? Is it connectiveness? Is it being a part of something? Is it health as membership? Is it, I struggle with this, I just need a stronger support system. What does that look like? What does that mean to you? So it's those kinds of things that I think it's going to take time, and and just really listening.
Mm-hmm. From your perspective, what do you think the Health Commons could do better? Is there something missing?
I think in the cities right now, they're just that space issue because of being in a trailer. So I think they'll be very happy to be able to get back into the church. But I don't think that's outside of their control. And I think the relationship that's been developed there is a pretty significant one. And so I think it would just be continue to focus on people, continue to engage in what it is that you think that they, that not that you think, but what they are telling you, what is it they're saying, continue to engage in those conversations and ask those questions, because it could change over time. Everything's changing so quickly that we have to be a part of that. But I like too that the Commons is welcoming, and I like that there's that level of engagement of like, this is your responsibility, it's my it's all of us contribute, and we're all a part of it. I hope so. I think that there's way more positives, and I think that the improvement would be just continuing to keep your focus.
Yeah, it's some good perspective. Is there anything that could have been better in regard to your volunteer experience?
Oh, I don't think so. It was very positive for me. It was enlightening, I guess is a good word for it.
Is there a specific story that you could share that stuck with you from your experience at Health Commons?
Well, that one still really stood out for me. The one that when I was talking about the person that had to choose, basically between living and climbing the system.
Mm-hmm.
That one will stay with me forever. I think another one that really stood out to me was a person that came in and they asked for their blood pressure to be taken, so I took their blood pressure and it was high, and then we just started talking about things that were going on in their life and what they did, and this person volunteered quite a bit, actually volunteered at the church and was very active and was actually I'm blanking on the word. He was a pastor and was not christened. He was supported or reached a certain level. I can't think of the word now. I'm sorry. But he was talking about one of his when he experienced something where someone came up to him and said, "I just saw you," or "I just saw you in this vision, and then I saw you with this certain gown on, and you were doing this and that, and you were succeeding, and you were talking to other people." And so he was kind of sharing with me one of, I felt like it was a cultural belief that you kind of visualize something, or someone can see this vision about you, and he truly believed it and embraced it, and very much so. He is a pastor, and he is helping people and actively working to help others out of situations that he still has struggles and he still has challenges in his life, but he's out there trying to help other people in a spiritual way, in a physical way, and I admired his heart. He had a true passion and love for those around him, and he thought more about others than he did about the situation that he might be challenged by or experiencing at the time.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we didn't ask about, or a topic you'd like to discuss a little more?
I guess I think I would just like to say that at Health Commons, it was clear to me the relationship that over time has been developed. There was a level of trust that I think was clear, and it's not an easy thing to do when there are people who are experiencing really difficult, challenging situations in their life. And so I think for me, that was something that was really hopeful, and I hope to see that as something in more places across our country. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I think that the hearts and the commitments that of all the people that I've met there that are regularly involved is really wonderful. But there's just not a good enough, just not a strong enough word. That I think it's just I don't want to say admirable, because it's clearly not something that it should be something that we all have, but they're actually doing it. So I would say I applaud them for that. But I think it's that, thanks for opening up my eyes, and just that engaging. So just thank you is the best way to say it. I'm rambling. So, but it's a great place. I think I really hope that we can build that kind of relationship here.
Yeah, it's helpful to see an example, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for inviting me.